So without more ado, and we've had enough ado so far, please welcome on stage the one and only, our author, Mr. Tom Mears.
So the question is always, what do you say? First book launch, I've been speaking before, but when it's about your own story and the specific stories about the book, and I question, what do you really want to know? Do you want to know from how I got completely depressed and nearly wanted to commit suicide about 18 years ago, and to stand here in front of you now with a dream in my hands? Or do you want to know my time in Colchester? Chasing some lovely Essex girls at the time. But to be honest, when I'm standing here today, one day I thought I would never, ever make it. I was told I was good for nothing. I was told I was, that people were, they couldn't be proud of me. And 18 years ago, I, to myself, proven to them that they were right. And how did that happen is that after my time in Colchester, my time working at Hintlesham Hall, Downhall, Seckford Hall, Lay on Wheelers, on the QE2 as a sommelier and a waiter. So from 20 to 28, I was away from Brussels, Belgium, traveling, working, and really escaping a sort of a reality that I had left behind. But also, I call it a moment now of growing up. Some people are ready when they are 20. I just wasn't ready at all. I was just a child in an adult body somehow. So all that time I needed to establish who I was, and just grow up. I think even my brain still needed some neurons connected. As children, when you grow up, the brain must develop. And it's only about 25 when really all those neurons are properly connected. I think for me, it was about 35. When they talk about brain development, it's about, you are an adult when that all is developed, but that's an average. 25 is an average. So that means some people are earlier and some people are later. So I'm a late bloomer. So in that late blooming, so when I went back home, I thought, what am I going to do now? I've been around the world about 4 times. I worked in hotel and catering. And I came back, I really didn't know what to do. So luckily it was a friend of mine called me up, said, Tom, what are you doing? I said, I don't know. Why don't you start a shop? A gourmet deli. What he had done from 20 to 28 was set up a gourmet deli with his, with the support of his family. It was really successful. He wanted to expand, and he said, you're the ideal candidate. We found a shop already that you can do work on your own, and it will be a sort of a franchise. I thought, thank you, universe. You gave me, I had nothing, I didn't know what to do. There it is, I can do that. He had the perfect BMW car. He had the perfect BMW motorbike. He had the beautiful house, the beautiful wife, the beautiful kid, the esteeming, the society. All of that, what he can, I can. And he's going to help me, so I will have that straight away. Obviously, it didn't work. In the moments after, so I set it up, this shop, and I opened it on 9/9/99. It's a date you never forget. It's too easy. A date you never forget. I was so happy, here I was. 2 months later, it turns out that I was already so depressed that I wanted to end life. I only found out it was 2 months later by rereading my diaries. I've written always, when I was on the cruise ships traveling, always written a bit of in a diary, and never, ever read them again. So when I was writing this time, I thought for me it was much later. It turns out it wasn't. Because of that, experience leading my own words back to me, I've also put them in the book. So when I was writing this story, which I come to in a moment, I thought why not copy and paste what I had written at the time. So when you see something in the book, when you're going to read it, and it's a bit in the green parts, this is really the authentic writing from my diaries. So there I was. I was not happy. I had a shop that was failing because it didn't work. I hadn't invested money into it. So what was I going to do now? I obviously in that moment, as I said, I'd proven to my father that I was a failure. It's not that they said that to me at that time. Earlier on in life, he mentioned it twice, how unproud he was of me. But in that moment, I thought, this is it. He was right. So why continue? Why do something still which is just from one shit into the other, if to say it so bluntly? Luckily, there was one person, the pharmacist of the street, with which I was the only person until that moment that I had confided in my worries, my troubles. Whatever was on my heart, I could tell to that person. So I was 29, and no one ever I had talked about all the problems that I had, or what was going through my mind, or that I had cut my arms when I was younger. No one knew that until I was 29. And this person came into the shop one day, Anna-Marie, and she said, here's an address, Elena Rutzart, here's a number, she's an astrologist, go and see her. What? An astrologer? You must be crazy, that's for desperate people. Turns out that I was desperate. And about 3 weeks later, I was sitting behind this big wooden desk with this scary lady in front of me, with leopard leggings, trousers, big blouse, high heels, long black hair. To be honest, it was scary. And she just looked at me. And she said to me, what are you doing here? And I thought, I'm with an astrologer, she must know what I'm doing here. She must be able to predict the future and all of that. And it was just, and that moment was just like everything stopped. And I could formulate that there was one part of me going in one direction and another part was going this direction. So I was explaining that I'm here because this is what my life is like. And what I want to find out is this. I want to experience this flow. So I said, okay, tell me your story. In that time, like say 18 years ago, life coaching or any kind of coaching, nobody had heard of it. Today, it's very popular. Everybody is a coach. At that time, there isn't. And it's just, what I had experienced from anybody in coaching was like a psychologist, psychiatrist. My mum had been to those. So I was not my mum. I was not going to be like her. I didn't want to go to them. But here was this lady that coached me. The first 2 hours saying tell me your story. So I told my story and she put on a new light on that story. So, but if you look at this side and you look at it from here, you're not so useless as you think you are. As you said, from all these experiences you've had, you've been traveling around the world. Who of your friends has done that? You've waited on celebrities. In Handlesham Hall, I was the personal waiter of Rod Stewart for 1 night. But I can have that on my resume. I had Rod Stewart. I was a private waiter of Rod Stewart. Status quo, remember, Claire? So that was on the, in Handlesham Hall on the QE2. We had other celebrities that I've helped. So you're not that useless. You just haven't found the right thing for you. So when my story became different, and this is one of the processes that I want to explain in my book, and that is from when you look at your experience, You can look at it from a certain perspective and put a new light on it. And as soon as you put a new light on it, and as soon as you see that in a different way, immediately your present and your future changes. As soon as you experience something from, no, I'm not so useless. I can do something. I don't know what it is. But suddenly that present and the future looks already so much brighter. And that influences you in a very different way. So then came the moment from, okay, I'm not so useless, I'm here. And she said, well, here are 3 questions. I want you to solve these 3 questions before the next visit, which was 4 weeks later. These 3 questions were in brief. Why do you admire people? Who do you admire and why? Why do people come to you and not to your friends? So what do they want from you? What did they say, Tom, can you help me with? And the third question was, what have you done if you say to them, oh, I wish I could do this forever? So in principle, what you admire in others, what do others admire in you, and in a way, what you admire in yourself. So with these 3 questions, I came home into my misery of a shop that was failing, of money that was going out somewhere and nothing was coming in. And you go back to that, and then these questions are far, far away. You know, you try to deal with the moment of your misery, and I just couldn't do it. But 3 weeks later, I knew next week I have an appointment and have to go back. So I have to make sure that I have to say something, you know, that I have something. So I sat down, took those 3 questions, and 15 minutes later, I had all the answers written down and sent it in advance to her. This was the beginning of email. Yeah, it was, you know, Google and all of that didn't really, you know, wasn't really so popular yet. So email was even very, very new. So when I sent it to her, in the next 2 hours with the lady, we looked at these 3 questions. And what she showed me was that in every answer that I had given, I had given the keys to my potential. What I admired in people was always that, you know, they're such great orators. You know, they can talk about anything, everything. You know, people like Simon and David, they have they're walking dictionaries. You know, I could never be like that. All my friends had the same kind of capacity of talking, having the best jokes, and I would come 5 days later, minimum 5 days later, with a response. You know, which was obviously useless. So that was one of the things. She said, but what you see, Tom, is what you have within you, but you need to develop it. Communication. You have an ability to teach people because you have already shown in other experiences, I'm not going to tell all the stories, in other experiences that I had that capacity and that I actually liked doing that, inspiring people. There were moments that I didn't think that was special. But how often do we think about our potential as being something not special, while it is very special? So in all, in the stories that I've written down, 5 words came out. I was a communicator, a teacher, a researcher, a therapist, and a traveler, somebody who needed to move around. My shop showed me that being stuck for 6 to 7 days in a space of about 20 square meters and living there was not me. It was too narrow. I had been traveling around the world. That was too narrow. I was confined in body, mind, and soul. And that really got my soul depressed. That got my soul unhappy. So with these 5 words being discovered, afterwards she showed them, you know, on the astrology shop, which I didn't believe in. And, you know, it's all a bit of a concept that I find difficult, but okay, you know, she showed me what she knew, and I must say, you know, okay. I had found it, she showed it, that it had to be represented in there, on your birthday, on your hour of birth and your place of birth. So with that, I went back home with one more question. And she said, from now on, I want you to describe an ideal day in 10 years' time. Can you imagine when you're depressed, when you're unhappy, when your business is failing, that you can even imagine an ideal, happy day in 10 years' time? That was, again, so it took me 3 weeks to really start and really focus on those questions again. But I sort of think now that you need, these questions you have, sometimes you need to sleep over it. I just needed to sleep over it for 21 nights instead of 1. And then I started to, again, respond to that. And what I wrote, also in brief, is one phrase. Because I thought, if I found my potential, which is these 5 keywords, communication, teaching, research, therapy, and travel, if that's on my astrology chart, somewhere that must mean that there is some kind of predestination, something that, that I'm made for. So I could imagine if I put that into my life. Remember, she didn't tell me that, but it was just pure reasoning of if these elements are in my life, I would be much happier, fulfilled, and probably things would flow better than whatever life has given me up to date. So I thought, okay, what can that be? And that's a futurizing moment. So I have, with a deep and holistic understanding of myself, and now we're going to the future, and from a future perspective, what is that future perspective? I said, well, I'm a therapist, I've developed my own approach, I've written a book about it, and I am asked to travel around the world to give workshops and presentations. I thought, well, if I do that, imagine I would be doing that, I probably feel very happy and fulfilled, and that would seem like a great day to wake up to. And where I feel from, oh yeah, let's go for it. That day I'm living today, it's 18 years later, but at 10 years, it was already all there in its potential. It was all ready. I was a therapist, I was an osteopath. I didn't choose osteopathy, just by following that kind of vision, and that's where I want to go. Even if I don't believe in it, but that's where I'm going, because what choice do I have? It's that or end. And I thought, I will focus on that. And I haven't wavered ever since. So then, going back, so I had said, this is what I probably would be happy doing. Went back to her, and she said, really, so what's stopping you? What's stopping you from that? Just go and do it. So I did. So that means from a future perspective to act purposefully in the present, and then the road is more beautiful than arriving. Just start filling that in slowly but surely, and become who you were born to be. So futurize yourself, and what the book is about. It's my story, yes, but it's about that with a deep and holistic understanding, and from a future perspective, to act purposefully in the present to become who you were born to be. So life goes on. I'm seeing that I'm fulfilling that image that I had set out. But then, 4 years ago, so I became an osteopath, started to speaking a little bit, started to give some workshops, developed my own approach. I was in Italy, in Gran Sasso. I was invited by the School for Dreamers to be part of the people that presented a workshop. And I was sitting outside. Italy, all Italian, so most of the courses were giving it in Italian. I was there giving it in English, and it was translated. So some of the things I couldn't participate in. So I was sitting outside enjoying the sun when I suddenly heard tom, 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 tom. What's going on? I'm outside, so looked around, couldn't really see what was going on and why that was being said. And on several occasions, that came back. Like tom, 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 tom. I thought, hey, that's strange, I asked afterwards, I said, yeah, there was something in the film that we were watching that you had said earlier on, so that was then the reference from, that meaningful thing that you said this morning. In the film, it was repeated, and so they all, remembered that you said that first. And, so that's why he got that. So it was a week, so it was going on. And on the last day, after breakfast, I said to Lorenzo, as a tongue-in-cheek, he said, hey, who is that Tom everybody's talking about? And in that moment, I knew that's the book. In that moment, I didn't need an answer because it was a joke. It was just something that I said. But in that moment, I knew, how did I get here? From that Tom with his shop, depressed, not really knowing what to do, really wanted to end life, to that moment where you get Tom. Tom became Tom the health navigator, by the way. It's like Tom the GPS. So Tom the health navigator. So in that moment I started, the book that I hadn't written yet. So I had my therapy, I had developed my own approach. I had communicated teaching and all of that. Research was, you do research for your presentations. So all of that was already there, but the book was not. So in that moment, that book was seeded in my head. It's like that moment I knew I need to write, how did I get here? And then write about the approach that I developed, and I write also about some, practical, how do you put that approach that I developed into the world, which is called the reset approach. Reset, R-E-A-S-E-T, means from return to ease, from stress to ease, because I became osteopath specialized in stress management from a body-mind perspective. So I'm treating the body for people with stress-related ailments. And the reset is bringing them back to that moment from when everything is like a high wire in their body, and somewhere aligned within themselves. And that's what people also describe, that after a treatment they feel that body and mind are really connected. They feel calm, they feel reborn. Okay. So that was the book that I was going to write, and started writing. It took a while. And then when the first draft was finished, I sent it to Elena, the astrologer, because she's mentioned in the book. And the way I described her, I said, Elena, do you really mind me describing you as a scary person? Yeah. And she said, Tom is perfect. This is who I am. Don't make me any different. So that is what happened. So, but she said, one thing more, she said, from Tom, you're writing 3 books. And I thought, what do you mean? So we had a conversation, says, you're writing 3 books. So this one is actually part 1. So I went back to my draft and continued writing the story of the first chapter, which is this one, 245 pages today. So and she said also, if you start writing one book, and it's it's probably you finish it quicker, because if I had to write my 800-page magnum, opus magnum, Magnus, or whatever they call it, I probably needed a few more years. So know that this is part 1. One element is important, that I continue to write, and then you have that moment from I'm writing down my story. And 3rd chapter now is Futurize Yourself, meaning imagine that ideal day in 10 years time. It's the moment when I watched the video by Gert Leonhardt, which is a futurist. I recommend it to everyone. It's on my website, futurizeyourself.com. Watch it. Because for me, that was like, wow. In the next 20 years, there is more changes than in the last 300. So if you calculate that since the iPhone came out and today, it's 11 years. Think about all the changes that have happened, how our life, our work, our social fabric has changed since due to this technology. Now imagine in the next 2 years that all these changes times 2. So in the next 2 years, you will get twice as many changes as in the last 11. So imagine that 10 years from now. And now I was thinking, how can I still ask people to imagine 10 years from today an ideal day while everything might have changed? That was a moment of crisis, because in all this technology and all of this AI, robotics, automation, what has purpose still got to do with it? What is purpose? What is meaning of life, living your potential? Is that still something that is valid? So I went to look and research and read, and also read Bert Lerner's book, which is Technology versus Humanity. And at the end of it, I really thought, no, this is the moment for this book. As Chris rightfully said, this is the moment, because technology is showing us really, or that we have to look at what does it mean to be human. What does it mean to be human with all that technology around us? So I continued writing the last chapter, and the last chapter is really about all my feelings and reflections from watching that video and reading his book and some other books. And I'm continuing that story from why it is important now that if we want to, in the future where technology automation, where many people will lose their jobs or need to find new ways of reskilling themselves to be up to date with that new technology, how do you do that? Because from a stress perspective, you have to know that I'm an osteopath. So I look at the body and I'm looking at how does the environment affect the body and create happiness or illness. I'm seeing with all these changes, more stress coming. Maybe some people will lose their job because they're being replaced by a robot or an AI system or due to automation. Or some people will find it difficult when a machine is more intelligent than they are. How are you going to, how are you going to feel about that when a machine is more intelligent than we are and looks like us, talks like us? Look at this Sophia, the AI robot that has gotten citizenship in Saudi Arabia. She looks like us. From a distance, you would not know that she's not a person. How will we feel? How will our egos go along when you lose a job or when you get made redundant because of a robot like that? Or somebody who is augmented. This is not science fiction, this is science fact. That we will get chips implanted in the brain that gives you certain stimulus, augmentation of your memory. 15% is already possible today. So imagine all of this. So I'm writing that down in the book for all my reflections on this. Because I'm seeing a new stress coming, which is existential stress. Existential stress, because what am I still doing here in this world of technology? What am I still, am I still have a purpose? I might have a basic income, universal basic income, but I have money, but if you're not meaningful in your life, if you don't have meaning, if you don't have something to look forward to, what are you going, you might feel depressed, unhappy, and that costs Social Security billions. So Futurize Yourself is also about how do we prepare ourselves for these changes. Unknowingly, I had done that 18 years ago. And today, I'm sharing it with you. And then I think back and say now I feel that I thought already there must be more to life. Well, I found it, I'm living it, I'm doing it, and I'm very happy about it. This doesn't mean that's always easy, but at least it's very meaningful. And it gives me a strength. It's like, it's sort resources. And for the young people, it's also, how to imagine that future. Photography, something being creative. It's very important to follow your heart. But also follow your heart, but also see from how is that going to fit in the fabric of the future. And to bind these two things. I really hope, when you read it, that it will make a story that is meaningful for you, because at the end of the day, it might be my story, but I want it to be your story as well. Recognizable, easy to read, that, as Chris also said, something for everybody to be inspired by. Because at the end of the day, that is what writing books is all about, is to be able to inspire others. And I'm inspiring you, hopefully, by my own story, to share it. And hopefully it will, for many people to come, that story of Futurize Yourself is something that, there's something there for all of us. So I thank you very much for coming this morning, and to really, if you want a book, I'll let Joe say what you need to do.
So, well, first of all, thank you. We do have the books in, and with little bookmarks, and Tom, I'm sure, would sign them, but people often forget you can buy 2 copies, because for friends and relatives, of course, why you have the man here, and he doesn't live in the UK. So if you'd like to take advantage, you can sign it for friends and relatives here, and then we trust you to pop back up to the till and buy it.
Yes.
But go get back into your chair, the throne, the signing throne.
Absolutely.
So, and Colchester is mentioned in it because of my, my beautiful time here. So, it's my home away from home, I call it, and that's the way it's put into the book. And that's also why, because it's in English and so forth, that's why it's been, the launch was here. It just made sense when Chris said, "Why don't you do it there?" I said, "Why not? I'm going anywhere, so let's do it here." So thank you all for joining and for taking the time. Like Graham comes all the way from Belgium today just to
On
say
the
hi.
National Day.
On National Day. Remember, it's Belgian National Day, so national holiday today. And also, Graham's done a great job at the end, as Chris said, for making the language even better. It was an amazing experience, which I really didn't look forward to. Chris can tell you, I was really angry. No, yes, you have to do it. Okay. It turns out it was the best decision that I've probably made.